Yeah. Neil Ratner here with a story. And today, in honor of my old friend Edgar Winter's 73rd birthday yesterday, I thought I would tell you a little about Edgar and my time as road manager for Edgar's band back in 71 that you probably don't know. But as usual, a little background first. All right, so both Edgar and his older brother Johnny were born with albinism, meaning that they lacked the skin pigment melanin. Now, what's interesting is that neither of their parents were albinos, although, obviously, they were carriers of the gene, thereby transmitting the disorder to both sons. The gene being recessive, so it wasn't expressed in the parents, two recessive genes together, expressed in the sons. Okay. And I think Edgar's albinism was a little bit worse because it could also affect the color of your eyes, making it very difficult to see. Johnny didn't have it in his eyes so bad. Edgar had very little pigment in his eyes and therefore was actually legally blind. He was considered legally blind. You know, when I first started working with Edgar, he would try and read with the thing right up to him, and he was the first guy I ever saw with audiobooks. Okay, that was back in the day. All right, now, just about everybody in the Winter household played an instrument, which provided a very rich musical environment for both Johnny and Edgar. And when Johnny decided to play guitar, Edgar, who was already identified as a child prodigy, learned to play just about all the other instruments, focusing really on keyboards and sax. But I mean, when I was with him, I saw him play the drums, the bass, the guitar. There really wasn't an instrument that he couldn't play. All right, so Johnny began attracting attention, and he signed a management deal with New York nightclub owner Steve Paul. Now, Steve Paul owned a club in New York called The Scene, which was the club in New York back in the 60s. First place Hendrix played in New York, The Doors. It was a very cool place. A little before my time, never got to go there. But if you did, you certainly know what I'm talking about. All right, and Steve got Johnny a huge record deal with record company president Clive Davis, who thought Johnny was the shit, man. All right. Now, Edgar soon followed Johnny to New York. Davis was also very impressed with Edgar, and Edgar got a deal, and his first solo album, Entrance, soon followed. And on that album, he had a song called Tobacco Road, which was a cover of an old song, but his version was really unbelievable and started attracting some attention. Okay, but when it was time to record his second album, Edgar saw a chance to fulfill a dream. You know, back in Beaumont, Texas, he had played with a lot of local musicians around East Texas, West Louisiana. And he always had this dream of forming this southern rock, blues, soulful, blue-eyed soul kind of swamp band with horns. And now he saw the chance to be able to do that. So he wanted horns, he wanted a kick-ass drummer, and he wanted another singer that he could trade off with. And the first person he called was local legend Jerry the Count LaCroix. Now, Jerry LaCroix was very well known around Louisiana. He was called the Count. He even dressed like the Count at one point. But man, that guy could sing. I mean, he had an unbelievable voice. And he and Edgar had been friends. They had wanted to do something together. So when Edgar called him, he said, I'm in. That kick-ass drummer was a kick-ass drummer named Bobby Ramirez from Port Arthur, Texas. And Bobby and I became pretty good friends. Sad story about Bobby. He died young, got in a bar fight. The guy who he got in a fight with was a martial arts expert, and bad story. But at any rate, John Smith, another old friend from Louisiana, played tenor sax. Mike McClellan on trumpet, George Sheck on bass, and Floyd Radford on guitar, and the band was set. And of course, Jerry was co-lead singer and also sax player, and Edgar played sax. So the horns, which were a very important part of White Trash, were also set. Okay, so in 71, Edgar and the band went into Columbia Recording Studios in New York on 52nd Street or 53rd Street, I forget which, famous studio, to record their debut album, and that's when I came into the picture. A year before that, I had met Rick Derringer. Some of you know the story if you've read my book, whatever. And Rick had started to play with Johnny Winter. And through Rick's efforts, I got the job as road manager for Edgar's new band. And so I'm actually going to read a couple of paragraphs of what I wrote about my first impression of seeing Edgar. Edgar was a full albino, just like his older brother. He was tall and lanky with shoulder-length blonde hair, red eyes, and very light white skin. If I hadn't already met Johnny, I had met Johnny about a year before when I was dealing with Rick, meeting Edgar would have been a shock. Most of the rest of the band were good old boys. Being their road manager was a real education. New words and expressions like shy, gumbo, and crawfish became part of my vocabulary. Singer Jerry LaCroix was a star in his own right. He had a distinctive, gravelly voice, perfect for white Southern R&B. He and Edgar went way back, and the band was the realization of their childhood dreams as they co-headlined, officially naming themselves Edgar Winter's White Trash featuring Jerry LaCroix. Still, Edgar was the draw. He was a master musician, and it didn't hurt that he looked outrageous. It was his band, and everybody knew it. This caused tension between Jerry and Edgar. One of my primary jobs was to diffuse the almost constant bickering that existed between them, often made worse by their wives. We didn't go on the road until a few months after I'd become their road manager, while Edgar and the band were working in the Columbia Studios in New York City on their debut album. I was with them in the studio as well, and my initial excitement lasted about 2 weeks. Then the reality set in. Take after take of the same thing. I was happy to be the go-to guy. Go to the coffee shop, go to the music store, go to the pharmacy. As the hours in the studio dragged on, I looked forward to someone sending me anywhere, just so I could leave for a while. All right, Rock Doc, my book. If you want the actual book, order it from me on my website, but there's a great audio book where I do all kinds of voices on audio, on Audible, ebook on Amazon. All right. At any rate, of course, the album finally did get finished, and we went on the road. And it was tough at first, since we were virtually unknown. But the band was kick-ass, and it didn't take long to build a following. Our first major tour was supporting Jethro Tull. And by the end of the tour, let me tell you, people knew who we were. So a major highlight of my time with Edgar was playing closing night of the Fillmore East. Bill Graham loved the band, and he personally called Edgar and asked him to play in the closing night concert along with Jay Giles, Albert King, and of course the Allman Brothers. I spent about a year with Edgar, and most of you know the rest of my story. Edgar, of course, went on to much greater success with the Edgar Winter Group with Chuck Gruff, Dan Hartman, and Ronnie Montrose. And I suppose most people know Edgar Winter from the songs Frankenstein and Free Ride from the album They Only Come Out at Night, which is a shame because Edgar is so much more than that. He played sax on Meatloaf's All Revved Up with No Place to Go, Dan Hartman's Instant Replay, Tina Turner's Simply the Best, that's Edgar on the sax, and David Lee Roth's remake of Just a Gigolo, as well as appearing on material by Rick Derringer, Johnny Winter, Ronnie Montrose, Todd Rundgren, Michael McDonald, and many others. And he was a member of Ringo Starr's All-Star Band on multiple occasions. Edgar's music has also been used for film and TV projects, including Dazed and Confused, My Cousin Vinny, Wayne's World 2, The Simpsons, and many, many more. Happy belated birthday, Edgar Winter, my old friend. All right. So that's it. That's my story for today. I already told you about the book. check out if you like classic rock, I've got this great playlist on Spotify, Neil Ratner Rock Doc's Medicine Cabinet. It's like 15, 16 hours of music. And you guys are the ones who pick the music. Because if you follow me on Facebook and you share any of the posts, once those posts get 100 shares, it goes on to the Spotify playlist. All right. Radio Woodstock, I'm on today. Good story about Annie Lennox, 3 o'clock Eastern Time, iHeartRadio. And, you'll catch me this week, my posts, whatever. That's about it. All right. New Year's Eve coming up. Don't drink too much. Don't drink and drive. And go out and have a good time. 2020 is going to be a fabulous year for all of us. All right. That's it for today. And as always, keep on rocking.